Thank you, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Cabinet Ministers and Assistant Ministers, Honourable Members of Parliament, of course our viewers who are watching online, Ruliambula, Namaste, Maori. I'm pleased to share today, Honourable Speaker, the highlights of Fiji's participation in the 15th Triennial Conference of Pacific Women, the 8th meeting of Pacific Ministers for Women, and the 3rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting, Women Leaders Meeting. Honourable Speaker, these significant events happened back-to-back from the 22nd to the 26th of July in Majuro in the Republic of the Marshall Islands. And I attended this forums, Honourable Speaker, along with our Acting Director for Women. But before I do that, Honourable Speaker, I wish to share a personal reflection. This being the first time I've set foot in the Marshall Islands. I've only read about it, I've only heard about it, but to actually be present and to somewhat comprehend it, it's nothing short of emotionally overwhelming, sir. And I'm referring to the nuclear legacy the Marshall Islands have endured and continue to deal with. The Americans tested a total of 67 nuclear bombs in Bikini Atoll. And to this day, there is a concrete nuclear waste storage facility, which is apparently leaking. This is the backdrop, Honourable Speaker, to understand the context of the repercussions on the health, the livelihoods and the very survival of the people of the Marshall Islands. I wish to take this time to remember those that lost their lives in a most horrific way, and the families who continue to endure the effects of the fallout for the last few decades, Honourable Speaker. Stories are told about the first nuclear bomb being detonated and the immediate fallout, Honourable Speaker, and the villages in the nearby atoll ran out as they saw what they called snow falling from the sky. They had never seen it before. They played in the snow only to experience the burning effects, Honourable Speaker, a few minutes later. From there, they were taken to ships where they were then observed and stayed on for months. But Honourable Speaker, I stand in solidarity with the people of the Marshall Islands as they continue to advocate against the injustices they face and the fight for climate justice, not just for the people of the Marshall Islands, but for our entire Blue Pacific. Honourable Speaker, the Triennial Conference of Pacific Women, which was funded by SPC, is a remarkable assembly that brings together policymakers, women's rights and civil society organizations, development partners, and relevant institutions from across our region. Since its inception more than 40 years ago, this triennial conference has been a cornerstone in our pursuit of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. Every 3 years, we come together to assess our progress and advance our efforts towards gender equality. Of course, the adoption of the Pacific Platform for Action for Gender Equality and Women's Human Rights, which is from 2018 to 2030, or the PPA, has provided a clear roadmap for our efforts. Now, this year's conference was especially significant as it coincided with the global commemoration of the 30th anniversary and review of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, or Beijing Plus 30. This highlights the importance of this triennial conference as the primary mechanism for monitoring our progress of the Beijing Declaration and the Pacific Platform for Action. I will share with this august House, Honourable Speaker, that this momentum will continue building through to November 2024, as I mentioned, in support of the moving of the sitting from November to December. This is happening in Thailand for the Asia and Pacific Regional Review, leading up to the Commission on the Status of Women in New York in March next year. Honourable Speaker, on that note, I'm pleased to report that Fiji actively participated in this triennial conference through engagement at multiple high-level plenary sessions on relevant topics, bilateral meetings, and of course, interventions during the Pacific Women's Ministers Forum. Notable, Honorable Speaker, was the attendance of the only Pacific head of state, the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu, Feleti Teo, who is also the Minister for Women. On this note, I thank our Honorable Prime Minister for agreeing to act in my absence as the Minister for Women, Children and Social Protection, showing his continued commitment to gender equality. Now, our collective discussions, Honorable Speaker, confirmed that, of course, gender-based violence continues to be a grave issue for all of us. We continue to have the same statistics, 2 out of 3 women, compared to the global average of only 1 out of 3 women. It's deeply concerning that we are underrepresented in leadership roles across all sectors in our political systems. And Honorable Speaker, on this note, I wish to thank you and thank the Parliament of Fiji for hosting the Women Mock Parliament over a week ago that saw 55 women from across the country here convening the second only Women Mock Parliament in the history of Fiji. The first being in 2016, Honorable Speaker, and I was the only alumni that is in Parliament today. And I challenge the women who attended Women Mock Parliament. Hopefully there will be more of them that will join us in this august house. We are also battling the high rates of reproductive cancers, as well as ongoing issues related to HIV and AIDS and teenage pregnancy. All these challenges are happening against the backdrop of a climate crisis, which always disproportionately affects women and girls. Honorable Speaker, as part of Fiji's country statement, we underlined our progress in preparing for Beijing +30. Strong policies and legal frameworks have been crucial in safeguarding women's rights here in Fiji and creating an environment where Fijian women and girls can thrive. Notably, female students now make up 57% of our graduates in tertiary institutions, outpacing male students at 43%. However, as we all know, women are still underrepresented in the labor force, so it is not converting into jobs, even though we outnumber males in graduates. Though we celebrate this educational achievement, we need equal participation in the formal economy, access to financial resources, leadership roles in both public and private spheres. Furthermore, Honorable Speaker, we underscored Fiji's commitment to our continued work on a whole-of-government, evidence-based and transformative approach. As you know, we continue to implement the National Action Plan to prevent gender-based violence against all women and girls, and developing the upcoming Fiji Women's Economic Empowerment National Plan. Honorable Speaker, I'm pleased to share that following the country statement, Fiji also took several important interventions. So at this conference, there was the introduction of a monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework so that we can monitor and evaluate the work to advance gender equality in the region. And we asked that there be a creation of a knowledge hub where we can access information as women ministers don't continue forever, but when there are new ministers that come in, they can access this information and be updated as to what is happening in the Pacific. Honorable Speaker, additionally, we advocated and proposed for the creation of a regional working group to specifically focus on technology-facilitated gender-based violence or online violence, which, as we know, Honorable Speaker, is now the crime of the 21st century. We emphasize the importance of collaborative approaches so that we have laws and policies that hold to account not only perpetrators, Honorable Speaker, but also technology companies, our large tech companies that profit from online activity. We also need to look at our regulatory bodies, Honorable Speaker, and our laws to be reviewed so that we can protect our people from technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Honorable Speaker, if our members have not heard a word I've said to this point, I would like to proudly share that for the very first time, Honorable Speaker, after we lobbied last year at the Pacific Women Ministers meeting, the committee the Committee on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or the CEDAW committee, is leaving Geneva for the first time. They've always met in Geneva, but upon Fiji's lobbying, they have agreed to not only leave Geneva, but to come to the Pacific to convene an extraordinary session. And this will be taking place in Fiji in April next year, Honorable Speaker. And this we announced at the Women Ministers Forum in the Marshall Islands. This proposal, Honorable Speaker, allows us to host this special session in Fiji, and of course, preparatory work will commence with SPC, relevant government agencies, and other partners to ensure that this extraordinary session is successful. The CEDAW Committee, Honorable Speaker, comprises of 23 independent experts on women's rights from around the world, and they're monitoring the implementation of the Convention on CEDAW, which 12 Pacific Island countries have ratified. Honorable Speaker, this is really significant following the endorsement by our Pacific leaders on the Gender Equality Declaration, and of course the launch of our 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, in which gender equality and social inclusion are regional priorities. We concluded, Honorable Speaker, the conferences and the ministers' meetings with our comms documents that encompasses reflecting on how far we've come and what are our unique challenges that we now face in the 21st century. In this spirit, Honorable Speaker, we, the Ministers for Women, on behalf of our governments, reaffirmed our commitment to the effective implementation of the Pacific Gender Equality Pledge and Beijing Declaration and Platforms for Action. And we did get the personal commitment from the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu that as he attends the leaders' meeting this month, that he will certainly be our advocate to present our outcomes document, Honorable Speaker. Fiji's participation and engagement at the Triennial Conference, as well as the Pacific Women Ministers meeting, underscores the importance of our collective efforts in achieving our gender equality goals. And of course, the historic event of hosting the CEDAW committee next year here in Fiji shows Fiji's active involvement and continued advocacy and dedication to addressing the critical issues: gender-based violence, women economic empowerment, women in climate justice, and of course, women's sexual and reproductive health and rights, and women's health. And we continue to do so, sir, as a flagship initiative and an example to the Pacific, because we do a key whole of government and whole of society evidence-based approach, which our Pacific Island countries wish to learn from. And of course, fostering partnerships, Honorable Speaker, with our Pacific women ministers and civil society organizations to continue progress in this regard. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank you, honorable members, for your attention. Vinakabakalevu, Danyabad, and Faexia.
Now, Minister for Women.